Hi, everybody. A lot of people often wonder how exactly what's the easiest house plant to keep alive? I've been growing things since I was 7 years old. I'm 30 now, so there are some things that I've actually attempted to grow, didn't do very good. I typically personally have a green thumb, but there is some things that I notice that take neglect more than others. Here's one plant I'm going to recommend to any person that really loves to have houseplants around the house. That is called the devil's ivy, or scientific name, pothos. Now what this looks like is, and I'm sure you've seen these in restaurants and malls, shopping centers, stuff like that. Some of these are going to be a solid green, and some of them are going to have like streaks in the leaves. And this is more of a marbled variety, basically. Now, how to take care of that, because a lot of people say, well, always kill houseplants. One good rule of thumb for the pothos is give it as much light as possible, but it can survive off of artificial light. Pothos also likes to be slightly root bound, which means when I say root bound, you don't have to transplant it every 6 months. It actually takes a lot to actually kill that plant. One of the things I would say is, one good rule of thumb is always dig down maybe an inch into the soil. If it's dry, go ahead and water. Don't let it wilt, but if it does wilt, don't panic. Just whenever it perks back up, some of the leaves may go ahead and fall off. If that happens, you just simply trim it back. The more you trim this plant, the more it's going to grow, as long as you take care of it. I recommend some very mild fertilizer every once in a while for the devil's ivy, or pothos, basically. It can survive under very low light conditions, but the more light you give it, the more it's going to grow. If you've ever seen people sometimes that actually have one upstairs right now that it's too big for me to show you, it actually goes from a 12-foot vaulted ceiling all the way almost down to the floor. And that's because it gets a lot of light, basically. The more light you give it, the more it's going to grow. But it can obtain dryness, low light, and but the more sun you give it, the better. Just my only rule of thumb with that is don't let it dry out. Any type of good tap water is good for that. When watering it, just make sure it's not ice cold. Maybe, I'm going to say room temperature water. It's not as complicated to grow as spider plant. It's also a good plant to grow as far as, I'm going to say, it's as easy as if you've ever heard of the snake plant, but it's not quite as easy as a cactus. But if you want something lush, leafy, and viney, I would recommend the devil's ivy, or pothos. It's one of my favorite plants of all time, and I just want to share that with you. Any store will carry that. What I would recommend is whenever you go to buy it, what I would look for is wilting leaves in the store, spots in the leaves, and if you see a lot of leaves that are yellow. If you do happen to get one that's sick, they're not very hard to bring back to life. Like I said, trim back any deadness. Just leave some leaves for it to go ahead and prosper and grow. Another good thing about it is if you take some of the cuttings off, let me see if this plant right here has some. There's, like, for example, there's a branch right here that has, let's see if I can get it close up to the camera. Right, I'm going to say right here. See that little brown nub? That actually means that if you cut that off, leave that nub intact, put it in water, it'll actually start to root fairly fast. Once it starts to root, what I would suggest is go ahead and move it into a small pot. Gradually, what I would do is maybe put 2 cuttings in there. That way, whenever it grows, it will actually be 2 plants and be more bushy. But I would have to say that would be one of the more easier tropical plants. You can put it out in the summertime, but what I would recommend is no direct sun. I would leave it on a covered porch, and whenever you bring it in the fall, if you live in a cold climate, I would maybe give it, spray it lightly on the soil for bugs. But overall, very easy tropical plant to grow, and as long as you take care of it, as far as just don't let it get bone dry, and at least give it some artificial light, it'll be your friend for a lifetime. Have a good one, everybody.